Well, good morning, everyone. Let's get going. I think we have a quorum, so we'll start off with introductions. My name is Kevin Hansen. What am I left?
Julie Baumelman, City of Fargo Transit.
Matthew Peterson, City of Fargo Transit.
Lori Van Beek, City of Moorhead Transit.
Michael Maddox, MetroCog.
Sean Kroll, Map Bus.
Jordan Smith, Map Bus.
Sage Thornbrew, City of Fargo Transit.
Paul Grinland, Valley Senior Services.
Britt Stevens, NDSU Transportation.
I'm Jackie Maas, not Sam Westrait from Concordia College.
Steve Fox from Minnesota State University Moorhead.
Jim Austin, Delaware City Council.
John Strand, Fargo City Commission.
Sarah Watson Curry, Moorhead City Council.
All right, well, welcome, everyone. Going to our agenda, first action item is the minutes from our July 18th, 2018 meeting. Hopefully you've had a chance to review those minutes, and at this time, we'd entertain a motion for those minutes if you've had a chance to review those.
I'll make a motion.
There's a first.
Second.
First and a second. Any discussion? On hearing it, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion's carried. All right, item 2B is the mobile ticketing and fare changes. This is attachment 2. Matthew.
Thank you. So MapBus has been talking some time about going to mobile ticketing. Basically what that means is you would be able to purchase a bus pass right on your smartphone. It's a pretty big trend in the transit industry right now. There's a lot of different companies out there that do this. We did receive a couple of informal proposals for the service. The one is from GenFare, which is our current fare box system that we have on board all of our vehicles. GenFare offers a solution that they would create an app that includes, they would actually replace our existing app and then would include the mobile ticketing as well. They would charge us an 8% fee per transaction. So what that means is every time someone purchases a bus pass, they would take 8% of that for their revenue. That would pay for all the credit card fees. There would be no capital cost initially for that plan. And then Token Transit is the second company. Very similar product, very similar setup as far as the finances go. They initially offered us 10%, but did send us an email follow-up here this week that said that they would match 8%, which again is pretty standard in the industry as far as the processing fee goes for mobile ticketing. There are some pros and cons to both. The second sheet on the attachment is a snippet of the Excel spreadsheet that I had done. I had taken a full 12-year span of all of our sales and looked to see what it would cost if we applied that 8% to our credit cards for all of the past fare media that was purchased by credit cards. And it was just over $12,000, $12,714 is the approximate amount that it would cost us per year to move into one of these solutions. With that being said, there would be some additional cost savings with not having to purchase fare media. Right now we have to purchase smart cards, tickets, single ride tickets. There would be some savings on the administrative time since right now our GTC dispatchers are spending a pretty significant amount of time selling passes and reconciling the till down at the GTC. So what we're asking is basically for the board to approve that we move forward with looking at finding a mobile ticketing solution, and that may or may not require us to increase the pass fare to help pay for that, but that would be then determined by Fargo City Commission, Moorhead City Council, as far as how we would finalize that. Questions? Sorry, it's early in the morning, so I'm kind of not all here yet.
Questions for Matt? Sure.
Matt, so you took a year sample here for
Yep.
the income. In other communities or for other systems, what is the percentage of mobile? I mean, it would be 100% purchasing mobily, so.
That's correct. They say it's about a 65%. that first year, they're seeing about 65% of their people convert over to mobile ticketing. And that's why I only use the credit cards, because right now the credit cards is about 65%. Debit credit cards have become very popular. That's used a lot more than cash. So it was kind of a worst-case scenario is what I wanted to plan on.
And then follow-up question too, both of them are, am I correct that both are just visual verification? So there's not actually scanning of the device or ticket?
Yes, so at this time, these are both visual verification. What that means is the passenger would bring their phone on board the bus, show it to the driver, and then the driver would have to manually enter that into our fare box. Both solutions would be able to be improved upon with some capital expenses, where we could put scanners on board our vehicles, and then they would actually have to scan the ticket on their phone. Rough estimate of that capital cost, if we wanted to move in that direction, would be about $250,000 to $300,000, depending on the solution that we chose. Token Transit does not currently have that set up, where they have hardware that would scan the device. They are working on that. GFI does have that already done. They would be a little bit more expensive with the capital, just because it would integrate into our full fare box system, which is really nice. Again, pros and cons with both, and we're still kind of weeding through what solution out there is the best, because really what it ends up becoming is what's going to work the best on the back end as far as how we manage that process. All mobile ticketing would be processed in the cloud, so to speak. And so we, for us administratively, it's important that it has a really good interface that we can manage those tickets and make sure everything is working properly.
So would you keep the existing channels open? In other words, the way they're buying stuff today, would you allow them still to do that, or is it going to be one or the other?
No, we would keep that open, and we would do that because people would still have the option of coming down to the GTC, paying cash fare, purchasing the current tickets that we have right now. And what we're hoping for is what we've seen with the implementation of our MapBus app is our costs for producing paper maps has significantly decreased because fewer and fewer people are using the paper copies. So this year, I believe we ordered, about half? It was like right around half of the general quantity. And that's what we would hope mobile ticketing would do as well. But that first year, we're going to kind of see a double hit because we're going to have, the same expenses plus mobile ticketing.
And then, so if I understand what you're looking for from us today is to further investigate and potentially look at a increased fare to kind of offset the increased cost and kind of come back with further information, or go to the city with it?
Yes, yep, we would. This is more or less for you guys. You're supporting mobile ticketing. Let staff kind of figure out the best way to move forward with this, and then bring it to respective City of Fargo-Moorhead for final approval. And then following our fare change policy, which Lori will be showing you guys a little bit later. We already have one in Fargo updated, but yeah.
Any rough estimates on what you're looking at as far as increase to cover this?
No, we've been having a lot of internal discussions as far as whether or not the fare increase is needed, or is it more important to provide this service to our passengers? Because really we're not in the revenue business. We're in the service business. And so we want to provide that service as easily as possible to our passengers, increase that ridership. So that's kind of our internal discussions right now that we've been having.
It would be about $3.10, that 8% fee on a $40 pass. We already pay 2.75% for credit card fees for those who buy them at the ground transportation center, so we already incur some of those costs. So we were talking, maybe a $2 increase in all pass prices would across the board would cover that. But another option, instead of increasing the pass fares, is just charging a fee for those who use their credit card.
So you can get a discount, so to speak, for paying cash.
Yeah. So that's what we're looking at now. We're going to be doing a fare analysis against our peers to see where everyone else's fare prices are at as well, so we can see that bigger picture of how we compare to other systems. We generally try to recover about 15% of our cost to the fare box system so that we can match grants.
Any other questions for the group from the board? John?
Thank you. This is really great information. Thank you. My thinking is, if you can at all not have much or any increase to the fare, folks, that's where I'd land if you can get there. My other thoughts are, when you're doing this RFPs or outreach, maybe you also explore the next level of technology, and maybe internally, if we could look for opportunities for financing that, whether it's grants or federal funds or state funds or whatever that could adjunct that, so you get where we're going to go anyway.
Right.
We need to get there. If we can get there faster with technology, but find other avenues of funding, I'd say go ahead and go there if you explore that if you can.
Okay.
On the Moorhead side, we do have funding for replacement of the fare box system, so that would include that
Well,
piece. And I believe Fargo's exploring grants or has
Correct, yes. Yep.
similarly, so we are proceeding to do that.
Any other questions? If not, I think, Matt, you have a recommended motion on the bottom of your attachment.
Yep.
So moved.
There's a first,
I'll second.
a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion's carried. All right, we'll move on to item number 2C, which is an increased agency rate for paratransit. This is attachment 3. Julie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Back in 2008, we implemented what we call an agency rate. And what that applies to is people that are paratransit system, and this is strictly on the North Dakota side, if I could clarify that. Minnesota's different, and it only refers to people that live in skilled nursing facilities or that live in what they call intermediate care facilities for individuals with disabilities. So what we did in February 1 of 2008 was we implemented an agency rate, and there's attachments that show all the details on that. And what that does is if someone that's from a skilled nursing facility or one of those intermediate care facilities goes to a medical appointment or a sheltered work program or day program, we are allowed as the public transportation provider to charge what would be the actual cost of the ride. And the reason for that is that people living in those situations already, they receive, the agency receives funding for their transportation. And instead of taking us for $3, which is the fare on paratransit, they would actually pay the agency rate. And as the public transportation provider, we're not allowed to bill Medicaid. That was originally our intent. And the state Department of Human Services would be reimbursing us. Well, we explored that, and the most we can get is what they call the customary fare, which is our $3 for paratransit. So for the internal administrative costs, it was determined that that was not an option for us to go ahead and do that. So what it is providers that can transport individuals under those situations, and most of them have their own vehicles. We are wanting to have paratransit available for folks that can take it for $3, and those other folks, if they want, like say from Rosewood, there's a trip to a medical appointment, then that would be something, if they use us, that we would charge the agency rate for. So in 2008, we implemented it at $15. We increased it to $25, and what we're asking today is to increase it to $38, which is the cost of a trip for us. And so what that does is actually, I don't want to say forces, but encourages the skilled nursing facilities and the intermediate care facilities to utilize the transportation they're already being paid for by the state. So we don't use this agency rate very often. Sean is our mobility manager, but it's pretty rare that these folks ride, but we would like to increase the rate. So happy to answer any questions for you.
Questions for Julie? Julie, you have the recommended motion that is to increase it from $25 to $38 effective January 1st, 2019.
Yes.
At this time, I entertain a motion if there's no other questions.
I'll make motion.
There's a first.
I'll second.
There's a first and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 2D, which is an update on the transit first contract. Julie and Lori, attachment 4.
Do you want to start?
Sure, yep. As you may recall, our contract with First Transit expires December 31st of this year, and we have options within that contract to increase or to extend it in 2 one-year periods at the current CPI or Consumer Price Index, not to exceed the Consumer Price Index. So back in May, you guys gave us permission to go ahead and come up with options for renewal. And we have been in negotiations with First Transit since July on what that could be. And so they did make a proposal to us, a cost proposal. In the middle of all this, as you know, we've been dealing with some performance issues with First Transit, and we continue to monitor the performance issues. They are making progress, and so we want to make sure that you know that we have decided that it would be in our best interest to extend this a year and continue to work through those issues with performance. One of the performance issues that we have, or just one of the issues we have, is because we have such low unemployment here, is that we're having difficulty keeping and retaining and finding enough drivers and employees. So First Transit has recently implemented some new sign-on bonuses and also have redone their advertisements and are being involved in some job fairs. They're advertising their annual rate rather than their hourly rate because we do have longevity payments and bonuses and things that go into that payment that the drivers get. Doing some new ads on Craigslist and Indeed and Facebook and such, and doing some direct mail marketing to the door for people to encourage them to come and apply for jobs. So they're continuing to do that, and hopefully we'll get more people in the door to become drivers, which will help us with our on-time performance and keeping enough staff to do all of the service levels that we need. So we did ask them for a proposal. They submitted a proposal. We've been back and forth with some clarifications, and so I've included here, Julie and I have included here the cover letter from First Transit, the summary price proposal, a copy of their organizational chart, and then Appendix 15, which becomes part of the contract, are the proposed wage rates and benefits for the drivers and dispatchers and personnel, so that you can see that the price increase is going to be given to the drivers and such, so that we can try to increase and keep people in that position. So on the attachments, we have 11 employees that are in the management team, and that will continue. We'll continue with 11 employees in the management team. And we have, 76, I think, full-time drivers, 16 part-time drivers. We're close to 100 drivers between Fargo and Moorhead Matt Bus. Our starting salary for 19 for a driver with the first year experience just coming in the door is $15.10 per hour, and a 25-year employee gets $20.71 an hour, and there are longevity payments on top of that, and then bonuses for safety and bonuses for incentives, and bonuses for referrals of other employees that come in the door. So they do have those. Dispatchers get 50 cents more than a bus operator, and supervisors $1 more, and so there's health insurance benefits and such. So we put together, this attachment gets included in the contract, so that we make sure our drivers are getting the things that they're proposing that they get. So price-wise, it's an increase of 1.38%. The CPI was 2.2%, so we are below the CPI. Most of that money is going to the drivers. The drivers are getting a 2.7% increase through their collective bargaining agreements, and that is already in place for 2019. The First Transit Company has that already in place. Julie?
You covered most of it. I do want to say that we do have the regional vice president from First Transit here and our general manager that's on site. If you want, they can certainly address anything that any questions you have, or just give you a brief rundown. But Lori covered everything very well, so we'll throw that out there if you guys are interested.
Questions for Lori or Julie? As far as the driver rates compared to like a St. Cloud, a Bismarck, do we feel we're competitive in the same ballpark, Lori, Julie? Hard to say.
We did not do a wage comparison. St. Cloud employs their drivers through the transit authority rather than contracting it out, so I believe their wages are probably a little higher than ours.
And I think Bismarck, frankly, is a little bit lower than what we have, but we can certainly check on that.
Attrition rate staying steady as far as driver retention?
Would you like to address that, First Transit?
I think that would be good.
Come up, and I'll slide here.
Thank you.
Driver retention is probably our biggest headache. My name is Paul Buhern, Region Vice President for First Transit. And driver retention is one of our largest issues that we have nationwide, and it's certainly not unique to Fargo-Moorhead because your economy is really, really taken off in the last couple of years. And that's why we've had to get creative with our advertising, with working with our workforce for increased incentives for doing good work. Matt Dooley, our general manager, is working very hard with his staff on employee engagement because how the employees are engaged in the workforce is a really large indicator of how likely they are to stay with us. And Matt and his team are very dialed into that. In terms of competitive wages, I think that we've got the wages set right for the marketplace as it exists today. But as those conditions change, we'll have to work with the Matt Bus staff to take a look at that. 2019 is the end of our current collective bargaining agreement. And so we'll be back talking with the Teamsters about wages and benefits toward the end of next year. And that is the end of this extension year.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, actually I have one. Paul, I had come to notice that the training in the RFP for the 88 hours for new drivers wasn't being done. Can you talk about how we plan on addressing that? And I know during the default process, that conversation that we had talked about having a weekly operations report submitted. Rarely do we get that on a weekly basis. How are we going to continue to ensure that those things come weekly and that we're going to monitor the training and improve that type of stuff? Because hiring is only one part of the beast, right? I mean, not only do we have to get the drivers in the door, but we have to train them correctly. So when we have those collisions and those types of things, how are we going to ensure that that is improved upon?
You did identify that disconnect between what we documented and what was required in the RFP, and that was immediately tracked back to the local staff to make sure that we're filling out those hours and that we're putting in the time so that people are properly prepared for the experience to drive Matt Bus, fixed route, and paratransit. So that is in place. And in terms of monitoring, you know that our district safety director, Don Johnson, is dialed in. I've also engaged our region safety manager, Clint Wellard, to supply some additional support. And so we're just going to make sure that those numbers are benchmarked and going forward. The report that you just mentioned I'm not familiar with, so let me track back to the local staff and make sure that they're meeting your needs in this area.
Yeah, because I know like this week you guys had brought someone up from Minneapolis, a trainer for paratransit, which is greatly appreciated.
Yep.
Doing some ride-alongs. First Transit brought up a gentleman from Minneapolis who was hopping on board our paratransit fleet with their current drivers and just kind of giving them an observation, making sure that they're dotting I's, crossing T's types of things, which is a fantastic way of retraining and ensuring that things are being taken care of. I just want to make sure going forward in this process that we kind of keep that same level of training and observation going. We don't want to be back here, obviously, in this type of a situation. We just want to continue our partnership and ensure that our passengers are receiving the best service possible.
Well, and to that point, we've identified a number of people, refresh my memory on who the fellow is from Paratransit. Bruce Johnson. So at this moment, we have Jose Quintanillo and Bruce Johnson who are supplying some extra training resources to you. Jose has been here a number of times before, and actually he and Bruce and I had breakfast together, and we talked about what makes Matt Bus different in terms of your policy and procedures, specific local safety rules. And we want to continue to use the same people so that they're familiar with your policy and procedures, so that they make your drivers better prepared to operate the service in the way that you expect. Bruce, it's his first trip here, but he identified that he's been all over the country training for probably a decade. So when we bring up trainers who aren't specifically familiar, what we're doing is we're making sure that they're following the basics of safety. And he's going to learn your specific operating procedures.
Yeah, no, that's great. I was glad to hear that they were up this week. I thought that was really good. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you seeing any impact? I know last time when Western North Dakota, when the oil prices went up, we saw drivers obviously in high demand out there. Are you seeing any impact to that yet as far as being able to recruit drivers or experienced drivers leaving?
Competition for CDL jobs is fierce, and I think that's especially focused in this area because of the number of agriculture workers that do that kind of work in the fall. And that's where the competition has come from. We haven't necessarily seen the competition from the oil fields yet, but I can feel the pressure coming, and we just have to make sure that we're prepared to compete fairly for the people with those interests and aptitude.
And I know, Matt, you're going to go through your ridership reports, but I think just to be important to keep an eye on incident reports and different things, 'cause I think the quality of drivers and safety is paramount, and with the pressure on wages, we need to make sure that we're attracting good drivers and good, safe program.
Yeah, and if I could just add on to that, Jordan, our fleet and facilities manager, had brought to our attention, which never crossed my mind before, within the city of Fargo, we don't hire a CDL employee under 1875 is the minimum. Yeah. So, I mean, just something to think about when we talk about the wage comparison and future contracts and, trying to get those things lined up. But, sorry.
If I
Yeah,
could,
let me offer this. If the agency, and we do this in a number of places, if the agency identifies that there needs to be something in the compensation that we don't have in our collective bargaining agreement or in our agreement with our employees, then we're very open to having those conversations.
Okay.
If I could, Mr.
Sure,
Chair.
sure.
Yeah. I think, Paul, if you could just very quickly go over how many drivers apply, how many get hired, how many make it through training, that process of
I think I need to bring Matt up.
vetting the
Direct
drivers.
conversation. That's something that I'll be covering with his team today, but I don't know the metrics off the
Okay.
top of my head.
I think it would be helpful for the board to understand what they go through to get a driver behind the steering wheel.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm Matt Dooley, General Manager with First Transit in Fargo. And the fiscal year for us starting in April, since then we have, I think we've attracted 76 drivers that we've had apply for the ads that we have posted. From there, I think we've had 36 of them go through the classroom training, and currently we have 8 of those drivers still on staff. So the number of applicants we get, the number that are qualified, the number that we put through classroom that actually complete the training, go into revenue service, we're a very small percentage of that.
Thank you, Matt. I think it's important
Yep, good information.
to understand that, yeah. Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? I see, Lori and Julie, you have a requested motion that we would extend 1-year extension for the First Transit from January 1st through December 31st, 2019.
Yes.
We have a first. Is there a second? First and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is carried.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to our informational items. 3A, update on the Matt Bus Transit Authority study. Mr. Maddox, attachment 5.
Excuse me, I'll try to talk loud enough so everybody can hear. A little sick. MetroCog has been working with the city of Fargo, city of Moorhead, and Matt Bus to look forward to after MetroCog becomes a transportation management area, which means a region urbanized population of over 200,000 people, which we are already there. Population estimates are currently about 208,000 for our urbanized area. After that occurs, there are more stringent regulations on pretty much everything that not only MetroCog does, but Matt Bus does as well. One is that the current funding stream can only be used for capital purchases or operating?
Capital,
For capital purchases, and can no longer be used for operating.
a portion of it can be used.
A portion, and there's a specific rules on smaller agencies. I believe it's the rule of 100. But as we grow and expand, it's important to realize what the fiscal impact of this change is going to be on Matt Bus. And in order to realize what that fiscal impact is, MetroCog's proposed doing a study of possible funding mechanisms that Matt Bus could utilize in order to make up for that shortfall. One such solution that has been bandied about for 20 years, there was a study in 1999, so that's updating that study, is to create an authority for this region, which basically just means Matt Bus as an entity would have taxing authority within a district. That's one possible solution. I'm not saying that that's the recommendation or anything. We need to study all funding sources and how Matt Bus operates and what our capital expenses are going to be. So MetroCog is using its consolidated planning grant funds, which are 80/20 funds that it receives from FTA and FHWA to study this issue and hopefully come up with some recommendations that Matt Bus can use and implement. And I would say that one of the emphasis of this plan is the implementation of those recommendations and having the consultant really set forth a lot of the documentation that Matt Bus will need in order to recover the shortfall in funds. With that, since I'm laboring talking here, I'll open it up to Lori and Julie.
Well, as Michael said, 1999, there was a very in-depth study that was done and identified all the way down to how do we approach the legislature, Minnesota, North Dakota, and get the authority to even implement an authority. So what we want to do is explore options from the do-nothing perspective to maybe there's a different way of doing it, contracting together. There's a whole gamut. So what we want to do is explore all those options and take into account that like Michael said, the revenue streams are going to change. And we want to be prepared for that when it occurs. So this RFP is requesting consultants to take a long, hard look at what's there and and just give us everything that we're looking for, and then we can bring forward some recommendations. That's what if Lori, if you have any comments.
I think important to this process too is the organization itself. You know, currently we have the two cities working cooperatively together, and the idea that as a transit authority we could have one organization and one organization structure that would be more efficient and effective to run between the two cities and 4 cities and the 2 states. So, the organizational structure, I think, will be an important element as well to the study and help us see that future picture of where we would be. So we probably will have some participation from this group as well on that steering committee, I would imagine.
Yes, most
So,
definitely.
What kind of time frame are you looking at as far as start date and completion date?
Well, MetroCog is just releasing an RFP. It will be, I believe, I sent it out to both NDDOT. MnDOT has already concluded its review. I sent it to NDDOT. They have reviewed it. They have sent it on to FTA and FHWA just to make sure that it meets all the eligibility requirements. And it likely will be posted this Friday. There's a 3-week posting period. And then proposals will be due to MetroCog, I believe, at 4:30 November 2nd. After that, we'll interview and award. So we'll likely be getting going on this project in December. And then hopefully the consultant that is selected can expedite some of their analyses. I know the North Dakota legislature meets once every 2 years, and it is meeting in 2019. However, we want to make sure that we have enough information in order to do that first. So we have a couple of opportunities, this being one of them, the 2019 legislature to be one of them, and then 2021. Likely TMA status will go into effect in 2022. So it's kind of a changing time for the organization. We want to make sure that we get out in front of this as much as possible. MetroCog as an agency has been getting in front of the TMA status for 2-3 years now, and trying to meet all of its requirements before it gets designated. I will say that the budget of this study is $200,000, which, like I mentioned before, is 80-20 money. The Minnesota side of MatBus did receive a grant from the state of Minnesota to pay for their local portion. And then 2/3 of the 20% will be paid for by the City of Fargo Transit.
Any questions from the board? So you'll be back later after the RFPs are back with a further update, is that the plan?
Correct. And this body will likely be the steering committee, or at least be involved in decision-making for that study, considering that if we were to move to an authority, this body would be impacted. This is kind of set up like an authority board already. So we will definitely be keeping everybody around this table apprised of the project and involved.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on our agenda to item number 3B, which is a potential location of the Jefferson lines at the GTC. Attachment 6, Matthew.
Thank you. So Jefferson Lines approached us, I want to say July timeframe, and talked about the potential of moving into our ground transportation center in downtown Fargo. Currently, they're located out in West Fargo, pretty close to the fairgrounds. Does not have very good, it really doesn't have any bus service out there at all. And so they approached us, asked if there was room for them at our facility, if they could rent some space, or if we would be interested in selling tickets for them. And so we began having some discussions with them. Excuse me. I did bring this to the Finance Committee in September. After discussing it with Julie and Lori, we felt that the best relationship with Jefferson would be to rent them space. We can build an office for them, and our facility would be able to house up to 2 of their vehicles at any one time. And so that was approved by the City of Fargo Finance Committee. There are some drawings attached on the next 2 pages. The Likely option would be the number 7, the second one, with a small change where that office would actually go to where the storage room is, and the storage room would move over to the east side of the building, so that it's kind of a longer, skinnier office spot for them. They did receive a grant from the state of North Dakota, which would pay for the construction of their office, and since they are transit and we are transit, everything looks good to go there. So we felt we should bring that to you guys for information. If you have any questions, let me know.
Parking, any issues there? Or do you see much parking demand for that?
No, not a lot of parking. Most of their ridership are transit dependent, which is why this move becomes very important for them. Right now, they're seeing a lot of people walk out to their facility, use Uber or cabs or whatever the case may be. And either they like being right off the interstate, however they feel being downtown would better serve their people and ours. You know, they sent me the numbers, and I want to say it was like $2,000 a month. Yeah, but they're also open 7 days a week. They would have 10 routes coming. They have 10 routes come through Fargo, and between the 2:30 and 3 o'clock hour is when they would have 2 vehicles. Any other time would only be 1. Now, the busiest time for them, of course, is the holiday season, and we're kind of shooting for a January to March, that first quarter of 2019, getting them moved over. So we would have some time before their busy season to work out some kinks in the operation and how it all works out. So, but they would actually have their own staff there selling tickets, handling the baggage, those types of things.
Matthew, in the past, there's been safety and some of that. I know that you've addressed that down there. How do you see this helping, hurting, no change as far as safety down in that area?
Yeah, so our hope is that the rent that we're charging them will either allow us to purchase more security services. Additionally, having their staff up in the front of the building, which is where some of the issues do happen, we would actually have eyes up there, so it would be better visibility. And then, you know, as far as the vehicles themselves, that'll be a little, I don't want to use the word, I'll use it, tricky, the first year or so. We are looking at doing some potential upgrades with our facility study, and long-term, this would work really well. And that's really what we're aiming for. So we're willing to deal with a little bit of trickiness and, you know, getting all that stuff taken care of to get to our long-term plan to better serve the public.
Okay. Any other questions? Sarah?
So they operate 7 days a week. Is it?
They do.
Their hours during the week coincide with the GTC hours?
Yes, we're actually very fortunate. Their hours coincide 100% with ours except for Sunday, because we're closed Sundays. We have a plan for that. And then I don't know how long it will be, but eventually we're going to have to provide Sunday service anyway. As Mike talks about the area population getting up there, we're not going to be able to avoid it for too much longer. So.
And if I, Mr. Chair, in the past, just for history's sake, the building that's now municipal court originally was Greyhound, and so the connection, that multimodal connection was there. Then it morphed into, they relocated to one place, and then they went to another, and they're in their third location, which frankly nobody can reach other than walking or having a cab or Uber or something take them there. We have a lot of college students that take the bus, and this would allow them to just get on our regular system, come down to our facility, jump on their Jefferson and go elsewhere. So we're basically just made full circle back, and I think it's the best thing to have that option for people. They're not only transit dependent, but you know, students that travel on our system all the time, and they're going to go home, so they need access. And right now, if it's NDSU, and I can't speak to the Minnesota side, but the pickup is at the Loaf and Jug, which is on 12th Avenue, and University on the north side there, which is pretty inconvenient for the bus to get in and out of there, and so this would be ideal.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is there Greyhound service as well yet, or is Greyhound no longer?
It's, no, they no longer, it's Jefferson, and,
Just Jefferson,
yeah,
yeah.
I think Jefferson in Rimrock. Rimrock goes west, and then Jefferson covers the rest of the travel.
Okay. Yeah, I know Jefferson has struggled for a home for years, and
Yes.
this is good.
Yeah,
Good location.
they bounced around a lot.
Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, we'll move on to our agenda. Item 3C, the Fare and Service Change Policy Update, Attachment 7. Lori.
Thank you. During our triennial review this past July, they identified an issue with our fare and service change policy that is dated from 1989. So obviously, it was a very old policy in need of some repairs. Basically, they wanted us to describe the public comments we receive and how we consider those or address those when we're making decisions on fares and service changes. So we did then amend our policy, and we got that approved through City Council on September 10th. So I wanted to make you aware of what the new policy is. And basically, we identified temporary service changes because right now that we don't have temporary service changes in our fare and service change policy. So if it's something that we think is going to become permanent, we'll take it through the process to consider whether it's a minor change or major change. But basically, the changes we made were to how do we notify people and what do we do with their comments. So the notification process is on page 2. In the past, we had the newspaper and the city website and the Matt Bus website. We have rider alerts that we send out to people who are signed up with us, our social media, and posters in our buses and our transit center. So with all of the new social media things, it's important for us to be able to reach more of our people with, hey, there's going to be a fare change or a route change that might affect you. We get their comments in, and then we present those comments to the city council with our responses. So if they've brought up an issue, we try to address that issue and say how we feel we can accommodate whatever that issue might be. So that when the council has a public hearing or when they consider through their communication, they've got all those comments that people submitted us in advance for those who can't come to the public hearing. And then they can consider those before they make an approval to the fare change or the service change. So the other thing we added to this major service change is before we had any change that was greater than 25% of the mileage, made it a major change and we'd bring it to public hearing. We also added revenue hours. So if we make a change in the revenue hours of that route, more than 25%, we would also consider that a major change and bring it through the public hearing process. So that was just for your information to know that we did make those changes.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 3D, Operations Report and Ridership. Matthew and Lori, Attachment 8. I think you just handed out some updates.
Yeah, so what I did was instead of going through 3 months of operations report, I compiled them all into one quarterly report. So we only have to talk about one, and then you guys have the detail in your packet for the individual months if you have any questions. Looking at this, ridership has been trending upward, which is great. Overall, 4.6% for the Map Bus system, almost 9% in Moorhead, and 3% in Fargo. Revenue hours and revenue mileage is trending down, and we want to see that. The more passengers we can do, the fewer revenue hours, the fewer miles we do, the higher our passengers per hour or per mile are. And so you can see we have a 7% increase in passengers per hour. So that's kind of showing that the operation is doing what we want it to do. We're seeing those riders come in, we're being efficient with the hours and the mileage, and we're having those passengers per hour increase. On-time performance, Moorhead has suffered some on-time performance challenges with construction, detours, things like that. So has Fargo. So over the last 3 months, it doesn't look great, but it's understandable with the construction season that we've had. Route 3 is on a major detour, and so those are just some growing pains that we have to deal with. Ridership by customer type, we do that so that we can kind of see where the trend of our customers are, so we can help target some of our marketing, those types of things. The adult ridership is staying pretty flat, which is good. It's up in Moorhead, down in Fargo, overall flat. Disabled, elderly, and youth, those are all up. And then our child, we're noticing, is trending downward. We're not 100% sure why that is. We're going to do a little bit more analysis. That could be because we've really been working with First Transit drivers on correct fare box inputs. So those rides could be transferring over to adult, elderly, or youth. They could be transferring to colleges, or they could just be forgetting to do those. And so we'll take a look at that a little bit. Either way, everything's looking pretty good for the most part on that. On the back side, I'll let Sean go over paratransit here in a second, and Lori over senior ride. The purple section, our call volume at GTC is dropping quite significantly. We are hoping that's because we have some better technology out there. We're using that better with the mobile app, the website. We've seen large increases in the hits on our website. We're being a little bit more proactive in getting out rider alerts. I know Sage and Taryn, the admin staff back at the office, have been doing a really good job of sending out notices through rider alerts for detours, trying to get our passengers the most up-to-date information the quickest way possible. Operating days, obviously GTC paratransit have a little bit different operating days, and our queue times are dropping in paratransit, which we'd like to see as well. Again, I'll let Sean talk about that a little bit. Moving down into the gray section, this is where we get into our collisions. Preventable collisions, that's any time that we see one of our employees could have done something to prevent the collision. Those are slightly down. However, we do have quite a few non-preventable collisions, and so our collisions are staying almost the same. We had the same 26 collisions this quarter, just like we did in 2017. Preventable or non-preventable, you know, I guess personally, non-preventable collisions, sometimes there's things that we could always do to minimize. Every situation's a little bit different, and so we do meet monthly with First Transit and review all of those, and that's how we determine if they're preventable or non-preventable. Missed trips, those are staying pretty similar on fixed route. We have noticed they're going up in paratransit. A couple of different reasons that could be. We noticed that there have been a couple of our reservationist errors in scheduling, and then also we've had quite a few new drivers training in paratransit as well, and so just the combination of some new staff and on our side, new staff on First Transit side, we have seen a couple of increased missed trips with paratransit. Mechanical missed trips, however, look very good. Jordan and our shop have been doing a fantastic job keeping our vehicle fleet maintained and operating efficiently. We did just introduce 7 new vehicles in September, so that's not the whole reason that our mechanical trips are lower, but could be some of it. And now moving into complaints. Substantiated complaints are down to 34 over the 61 previously in fixed route. We'll do another analysis this year for 2018 like we did in 2017 where we broke those out for you, but we'll do that for the January meeting. And that way we can kind of see, you know, what is the trend of the complaints that are coming through. And unsubstantiated complaints. This is a real hard one, mainly because with unsubstantiated complaints, that can be anything from, you know, a customer not being happy with the policy, and we just have to inform them of the policy. A route change, a detour, as I had mentioned, we had some pretty big detour issues this summer. And then our incidents, security incidents are slightly down, but not a lot. We still did 170 of them over 3 months. And that's our outside security services that we hire. Refresh my memory.
Sentry,
thank you. I was thinking it was the other one. Sentry Security. And then our falls and injury, those are up slightly. You know, 5 with the amount of miles that we've done in hours, and not the end of the world by any means. We've got to remember that we do work with quite a few people who are disabled or elderly, and so we are tracking all that information. And then down in the blue, our social media, the mapbus.com, like I said, that's gone up quite a bit. 364% increase is not 100% accurate. Last August, we launched the new mapbus.com website. In the first 2.5 months, we did not have the tracking information in there. However, all previous months that we've compared where we did have the tracking, we've been up between 40 and 60% in our hits on the website. So that tells us people are using our website a lot more and getting their information there, which is good. We expect to see the downward trend in MapBus Mobile because that site's no longer in use. They can still go to it, but it actually forwards them to the mapbus.com site. And then the MapBus app has been 25% increase in use as well. With that, Sean, do you want to cover paratransit? And then Lori.
Yeah, sure. So for ridership for the last 3 months, you see a drop in the ridership for Moorhead, but an increase for Dilworth and West Fargo. Overall, the average is pretty flat, though. The ridership or revenue hours is just up just 1.6%. However, our revenue mileage has gone up quite a bit more at 22%. And I think that's has a lot to do with the number of trips we're doing from, say, Dilworth out to West Fargo. And, you know, so you have from one end to the other end type of trips. Unfortunately, there's not that many Dilworth to Dilworth trips, but they seem to be mostly Dilworth to West Fargo or to Fargo trips. So I think that might account for some of that increase in the revenue mileage. But I do like the fact that we're keeping the revenue hours pretty stable considering that our mileage is going up. So passengers per hour, we're holding pretty steady at 2.20 compared to last year at 2.23. And our on-time performance is up 2.5%. So that's good. I would like to see that number, you know, go up or at least stay pretty consistent with the year before. The para-calls, I just want to note that we're utilizing our, we can do subscription rides as long as they don't, as long as there's not 50% or more subscription rides per that hour. So say the 8 o'clock hour, we have to keep any subscription rides lower than 50% of the total rides for that hour. And so we've started to utilize that a little bit more to help decrease the number of calls we're getting. And a subscription ride is where someone doesn't have to call in, say they ride the same, do the same trip Monday through Friday to work and back. So we started to utilize subscription rides a little bit more to our advantage also. So if someone is usually calling in and asking for an 8 o'clock, but our scheduling, we think, well, if we could give them a 7:50 instead to fit our schedule better. So we kind of negotiated that with some of our passengers. So we focused on the people who have those Monday through Friday who call in and take up every time they call in, it's a 5 to 10 minute phone call because they want to do the whole week. So we focused on that a little bit, and I think that overall we're starting to see a drop in the number of calls that we're taking. So trying to different ways to, I don't know, maximize efficiency there. So
on Metro Senior Ride on Moorhead and Dilworth, ridership is down slightly, but up quite a bit in Dilworth, down in Moorhead, so similar to paratransit there, so we have more people traveling from Dilworth. Revenue hours staying pretty steady, revenue miles it's decreased, and passengers per hour have decreased. So regarding the fixed route on-time performance, as we mentioned, Route 3 is on a detour. That's the 20th, 21st Street grade separation project over by the high school area, where we're on a 2.5-year detour now through the neighborhood. I think it's a pretty good detour, but certain times of the day we have some difficulties with students coming in and out of the high school, and traffic is higher, and so there may be some issues with on-time performance with that route. Otherwise, the routes are doing pretty good. And I did want to note Link FM as well, since that's a joint bus service, is up 12%. So good to see that more people are riding Link.
Yeah.
And I did attach the graphs, of course, on the back, because I know some of you guys like the graphs over the headache of numbers. So.
And if I could add one thing too, Matt talked about collisions and noted that the collisions were the same from last year to this year, 26 still is not a good number. That's very high.
That's very high.
Even though we didn't see an increase, 26 is not good. So I think we can attribute that to, like we were talking earlier with drivers and driver turnover. You know, the more new drivers we have, it just tends to, you know, obviously have more collisions with, you know, have less experience and stuff with the drivers. So that's just something to keep in mind when we look forward to the future as far as hiring drivers and contractors, stuff like that, you know, wages and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, because it's very expensive for us for a collision. Our budgets get hit pretty, and I'll jump on that one too. If you look on the very last column, that per 100,000 miles, industry standard, I believe, is, Paul, is it 2.5 that you want to be below? Yeah, 2.5 collisions per 100,000 is considered the standard. So you can see we're pretty high on the fixed route. We're good in paratransit, but we're pretty high on on fixed route.
John, you had a question?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious if we will expect a increase in Link FM with the downtown Block 9 construction project, and or if we're doing anticipate any changes in that route to accommodate that project?
I'm going to look at you on that one.
Well, yes, Commissioner Strand, we do expect increase. We have reconfigured it slightly because of the Robert Street area, and it still covers mostly the original route, but I think that's going to significantly impact ridership. And if we do see that it's so busy that we need to add service or something, that would be something we would have to discuss with City Moorhead and, you know, make any decisions going forward with your input. But I think a big part of the increase is with the construction, not only of Block 9 coming online, but you know, the City Hall that everybody moved into, and the Robert Street, the ROCO, as they call it. We're seeing more and more people not parking and getting on, and they're parking at Moorhead Center Mall. There has been some discussion of Island Park parking and bringing it north into Fargo, which would be totally Fargo's responsibility. So yeah, I think it's great that we're getting people out of their cars and moving into this. Yes, you're welcome.
Any other questions on the ridership update?
Matt, I have a question. I'm wanting to know, are you finding it useful to utilize the Remix software for the detours and everything that have been planned for the region?
Yeah, we actually use Remix quite a bit. We've been using it for detours, planning, so it's been a very useful product.
Yeah, Remix is our planning software. You know, when we do a major detour like we did for the 21st Street grade separation, you know, with that route is 30 minutes long, and it needs to make transfers with the rest of the buses at transfer hubs. And so before we planned that out, we could draw it up, and it would tell us, you know, how long it would take and how many miles we're driving and who we're reaching population-wise. So Remix has been very helpful for that. I did also want to mention, you know, as we complete this 2019 contract with First Transit and we potentially go back out for bids, we don't normally do a wage study as part of our going back out for bids. And we also established the minimum wages that they can pay in that request for proposals, so that all of the proposers are at least have a minimum wage set that would be a proper wage for our market. So that is something that we do in that process.
I had a couple questions. One on the ridership for the one route that was changed in Fargo, West Fargo.
Route 20?
Yeah.
Route 20. How's that, you know, progressing? And then the other one relates to paratransit.
The other one what?
The other one relates to paratransit, the other question.
Route 20 actually, knock on wood, has been going fairly well. We haven't had any complaints about combining of the two routes. It seems to have improved the on-time performance a little bit with it. It's still not ideal because it was a pretty large construction project there along 13th Avenue. Now that should be wrapping up. I haven't been out there as a No?
I was going to say, what you obviously
not
haven't
good.
been out there.
I have not. I stay away from there as much as possible. So, I mean, that's going to be a long-term issue. However, passengers seem to be finding it a little bit more reliable, being able to get on Route 20 and understanding that route and looping it through West Acres twice an hour. So that's been a good change so far, from what we understand.
Okay. The other question relates to paratransit, and I see that the numbers in West Fargo are up appreciably. Is there any kind of particular reason for that you can see? Are there more group homes coming online at different places, or more utilization there, or just more people using it?
From what I can recall from processing the applications, I see them more as residential homes, so it could just be expansion from West Fargo growing. I don't have any other, haven't seen that like a large uptick from any kind of nursing homes or anything like that from West Fargo.
Sean, what about that new assisted living place that's by that Cashwise? Have we seen any increase there?
What's the name of that place?
New perspective.
There we go.
Not that I've noticed, no.
Okay.
Not saying that there haven't been some people there, but I haven't noticed an increase.
Yeah, if I could, I know in West Fargo you have constructed quite a few of the group home settings, and those seem to be coming online frequently. We have a lot of dialysis patients that go to, there's a DaVita located out in that area, and that seems to be, Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but we see a lot of utilization for the folks going to dialysis from.
Right, that's over on 45th, I believe.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah,
So yeah, we do see a lot of utilization for DaVita and Sanford dialysis. There's one in DaVita and Dilworth, and then there's one on 45th, and then the one on University for Sanford.
yeah.
Any other questions? If not, we'll move on to attachment number 9. Sean, paratransit update.
Thank you. So we've already covered the quarter review. I do have the breakdown there of the months, which I'm not necessarily going to go over again since we just covered it via the quarter. I do want to point out the queue time tracking. That's the amount of time people wait in our queue before the call is answered by a reservationist. July, we felt our goal is 95% of our calls under 3 minutes and 99% under 5 minutes. And then for July, we fell a little bit short of that goal, but for August and September, we actually met our goal. So I was pretty happy to see that. And then our paratransit applications, I've processed 233 applications so far this year. And then the reservationists who usually do the discount fare applications have processed 373 applications as well. The pilot program that we're in the almost starting the, I guess started the second year of now for Sunday service for paratransit for Moorhead and Dilworth. On the back page of that, for July we had 24 rides, August 12, and September 17. So most of those are, I don't have it broken out, but most of those are Moorhead trips. We have a few Dilworth riders riding on Sunday. And then there are posters in the, or flyers in the paratransit vehicles reminding passengers that they can ride on Sunday if they live in Dilworth and Moorhead. And then just an update, we did have one reservationist. We have besides myself, we have one lead reservationist and then 2 other reservationists. And one of them has resigned in September, so we're right in the middle of the process of recruiting for that replacement. Hopefully we'll have that position filled soon, but and so in the meantime we've had an intern and a temp worker helping us out. So hopefully by the time next time we have one of these meetings we'll have a new reservationist in place. So And then, again, we just continue to work on our efficiencies and come up with new ideas to improve those efficiencies and new ways of looking at scheduling and dispatching. So I hope that things continue to see improvement. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Okay. Thanks for the update. We'll move on to our final item, 3F, promotions and marketing update. Sage and Tarn.
Thank you. So to start with, just to review our most recent events and promotions that we went over, the Downtown Street Fair took place from July 19th through 21st. Every year we use that as an occasion to promote usage of Link FM and other fixed routes to get downtown, especially with all the limited parking. So we tell people, go hop on at Moorhead Center Mall and take the bus over. It's a lot quicker. So we put 2 extra service vehicles on the Link FM route, essentially a bus coming by every 5 minutes. We did radio ads. We had a radio booth there. We gave out a lot of free giveaways, like a backpack for people to carry their purchases in, sunscreen, ice cream, social media, all sorts of stuff. And the nice thing was, so even though we did see that the total ridership decreased over those 3 days in comparison to last year's street fair, we think that a large part of that has to be, if you all remember, that Thursday was terrible and was dumping on everybody essentially for the whole day. But overall, if you go back and you look, 2018 Friday and Saturday actually were higher than 2017 Friday and Saturday, probably because more people didn't get to go on Thursday, but yeah. Moving on. After that, we had our back to school promotion. So what happens is primarily we do radio ads, but we do all sorts of advertising, radio remotes, campus giveaways, grand prize drawing, digital ads, social media. And we go on campus and we host booths as well, and we just talk to local students about the fact that they can ride MapBus for free with their student ID. We talk to them a lot about our recent technology updates. On NDSU specifically, we talked a lot about the new tap ride service, new, quote unquote, started last year, but still relatively new. And then, so overall, in August of 2018, in comparison to last year, we've seen college ridership increase by 3%. September ridership did decrease by 4%. In our most immediate upcoming events, fairly recently, Taryn and I were both reached out to by WDAY, Forum Communications, and they were looking to put together a trade agreement for a bus wrap, and so essentially they would receive one Moorhead vehicle, one Fargo vehicle to put a full bus wrap on, and in return the city receives the full rental value in wrap in television advertising. Not only does this include the advertising itself, but it includes the production for new commercials that is included in that cost. So we would be able to run existing commercials that we already have put together and work with them as well to put together some new ones. So Taryn and I are working on coming up with some new ideas and hopefully get some new commercials put together. The other thing most immediate coming up is the Fargo Force Game Night sponsorship. Last year we put together a trade deal with the Fargo Force, and part of that trade deal is that every year we get to go and host a game night. So we go and we essentially sit at a booth, talk to people as they come in, do some giveaways, talk to them about our services, etc. So this will be on October 18th. We also did a drawing for tickets for passengers that have already, the winners have been selected, and most of them have already been picked up. So.
And I will cover the rest of what we have coming up through the end of this year. Most immediately coming up next week is our Try MapBus Week. This is a promotion that we do every year to both try to attract new ridership, so we're saying give MapBus a try this week. We're going to give you incentives like half fare rides on fixed route Monday through Friday and free rides on Saturday. And then we also appreciate our existing customers. We do a customer appreciation day on the Thursday of the week. And every year we have staff members down at the GTC, and we have a popcorn machine. We're making fresh popped popcorn, giving away bottled water. This year we're also doing a giveaway of, well, rather than doing a prize drawing, which we have done in the past, people who stop by our booth on Customer Appreciation Day can get a free knit stocking cap with a Mapbus logo on it as more of a giveaway item rather than doing a drawing, and that's just while supplies last. And it's always a fun way to connect with both new and existing customers. We do radio ads. We're continuing with digital advertising to reach more people on their mobile devices, doing a couple of print publications, some digital billboards, and then during Customer Appreciation Day, we will also have a radio remote on site. And I believe that's also the day that First Transit is doing a hiring event down at the GTC as well. So there'll be lots of fun activities and traffic downtown on that day. Coming up after that, just a small little treat that we do for Halloween is each year on Halloween we put out candy buckets on all of our fixed route vehicles. So just to kind of give a little treat to our passengers. And that's just that one day only on Halloween as just a fun little treat for them. Also with Election Day coming up on Tuesday, November 6th, we will have free rides on all of our fixed route vehicles. For paratransit riders, they can still get free rides too. They just have to state when they make their reservation that they're going to a polling place to vote, and they can get a free ride to their voting event as well. We also have our winter promotion. This is a promotion that we kind of devised to fill a hole within the Mapbus marketing and messaging throughout the year. We weren't really reaching out to people as much during this time, and we also did this back in February. And this is just a nice way to keep Mapbus front of mind and remind people that Mapbus is a helpful option in the wintertime, avoiding wintry road conditions, cold cars, cars not starting, having to deal with traffic and parking lots. So it's a smaller promotion for us, so we do just a smaller radio campaign, some social media, and some, internal advertising on our buses. One of our Yom-Comst events is coming up, Pangea, and that's one of our events that we had identified on the Moorhead side where we were going to provide extra service on Link FM. So during that event, we will have an extra Link FM bus on the route, and we'll also extend service a little bit earlier in the day so that we're starting service half an hour before the event begins so that both volunteers and attendees can get to the Yom-Comst. And then the end of the event is already covered by our normal business hours, but we'll have that 7 to 8 minute service with an extra bus en route. And then our last big event for the year is Quarter Days. And the main purpose of this is to promote Mapbus ridership during kind of some key shopping days for the holiday season. So it starts on Black Friday and continues Small Business Saturday and then every Saturday in December. And during those days, since it's called Quarter Days, you can ride Mapbus for just a quarter. And we promote things like, avoid busy parking lots, avoid winter driving, kind of similar to our winter promotion as well. We usually do a nice big splash for this with radio ads, social media, billboards, bus posters. One of our items through our radio contract is to also do a social media video, and then we'll have some print advertising for that as well. And that's a good picture of what we've been up to lately, what's coming up. If you have any questions, we can answer those for you.
Any questions?
I'd like to add one thing.
Sure.
We also in Fargo, Route 15 operates 15-minute service Monday through Friday during the Quarter Days promotion. We operate that on Saturday as well. So that Route 15 goes down 13th Avenue to West Acre, so it's our main shopping route. So that's also included in Quarter Days.
Anything else? Any other business? Okay, hearing none, we are officially adjourned. Thank you, everyone.